you don't want the partner who's triggered to keep going, because the only way that she can continue in the sexual activity once she's triggered and re-experiencing the trauma is to leave, exactly, and dissociate. Helping the couple communicate about this and understand that it's a process, and understand that it doesn't mean she doesn't love you, and it's not a rejection of you, and it's not necessarily that you're doing something wrong, but to come up with a game plan.
What does it look like when you want to now have sex with your partner and they have this history?
That's a great question. When you want to have sex, there's a problematic thing in that the brain has very often taken whatever was around when the bad thing happened and flagged it as potentially dangerous. So if that was somebody in a red car, or that was the sound of a helicopter, that is less likely to impinge upon your life. But if it's the body parts or the things that are present in a sexual context, and those are things that your brain has marked as potentially life-threatening, they can, certain things that are really not meant in a bad way at all in a loving situation, can all of a sudden create either a flashback or a response in a survivor that she doesn't want to have happen in her love relationship, and her partner doesn't want to have happen. But to be able to help them understand that even with very well-intended and loving people, that this is part of the body and the psyche relearning a new relationship with those kinds of activities and even sensations, and that this is part of, I mean, unfortunately, in a way, it's a learning by having the triggers happen at times and being able to respond lovingly, being able to stop, because very often, when that happens, you don't want the partner who's triggered to keep going, because the only way that she can continue in the sexual activity once she's triggered and re-experiencing the trauma is to leave, exactly, and dissociate. And so you don't want her dissociating and gritting her teeth and getting through something. And so helping the couple communicate about this and understand that it's a process, and understand that it doesn't mean she doesn't love you, and it's not a rejection of you, and it's not necessarily that you're doing something wrong, but to come up with a game plan. What do we do when something happens and you find yourself feeling triggered? And even also checking in with her. I mean, there are ways that a partner can...
During sex.
Yeah. I don't want to make it a caricature of, is this okay, is this okay, is this okay? But if a partner is tuned in and he notices that he thinks that she's not present, he can stop, or he can connect with her. There can even be, sometimes couples have a code word for when she can't, in that state, say, I'm triggered right now, and I want you to stop and just hold me and let me know that I matter to you, and let that adrenaline and that process resolve. So to be able, when couples can help each other with things like this, they can find their way through it, because chances are that survivors want to have a positive, loving sexual relationship and don't want to give the perpetrator any more power over their life or take anything more away than they already have. So they want their life back, and that includes a healthy sexuality.
If you like psychology and learning about mental health and want to learn more while meeting other people who are interested, explore your membership options using the link below this video or visit MedCircle.com.
What do you think the percentages of couples who can get through this and see themselves on the other side as happy, great sex life, together, maybe even better than ever?
Better than ever couples, I see them when they've had treatment.
When they've had treatment.
When they've had treatment.
Okay.
Untreated PTSD does not tend to get better all by itself. I have seen couples, when they have really amazing communication and support, find their way through this together if they actually reach out and utilize that relationship. If they've had a healthy enough foundation of good relationships before the betrayal of the trauma occurred, those folks tend to be set up a little bit better to use tend and befriend, which is actually a very common way that women respond to trauma and stress, by reaching out to others for support, by wanting to bring that in. Whereas a lot of times men who feel stress and trauma tend to isolate more than women do. So part of working with couples is also normalizing for men some of the things that are going on. A lot of guys think, there are no other guys in this situation, or is this a reflection of me, or if I were really a good enough partner, she wouldn't be having this problem. And that's not the case. If she's reaching out to you and risking and being vulnerable, particularly about sexuality, in this way, you really matter to her.
Right.
It really
more than
says a
anyone
lot.
maybe at that point. Yeah.
Yes.
Is it appropriate for the husband, boyfriend, fiance, whatever, to suggest, hey, let's go do therapy?
I don't see why not. I think it's
Okay.
a great idea. It's funny because we have this myth that therapy is for crazy people. And actually, if you look at anything else in your life, if something isn't working as well as you want it to be working, it is healthier to say, you know what, if I had the tools already, I would be doing it the way I need. So let's go get some expertise. Let's go find somebody who knows something about this so that I can make the adjustment, so things can get better and I can get more out of my life.
I don't want to go off on a tangent, but I'm going to for just a second, because it riles me up. People would love to have a personal fitness trainer. They would love to have a nutritionist and a private chef. They would love to have a housekeeper and a dog groomer and a dog trainer and all these things. But then therapy, and they're like, well, no, I'm like, what? Literally, this is the most important muscle, right? And your mental state and your emotional state is what drives all these other things. Why wouldn't you go see someone who's dedicated their life to doing it? I don't get it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I appreciate your passion about this.
Well, yeah, because I feel like, when the best time I feel, and I'm not a therapist, tell me if I'm wrong, the best time to go to couples therapy is when everything is just perfect. Just go then.
When things are perfect or when things are really good.
Yeah.
You can get so much out of couple therapy. But what happens a lot of the time is people are like, well, we've tried everything else. We were going to break up, but we'll try this one last ditch thing.
That's right.
And the difficulty level for you and for the couple therapist is way higher at that point, because you have lots of goodwill before you get to that point between you. And when you wait till a point where you're so frustrated that that's drained out, it's a lot more difficult. Not impossible,
right?
But harder.
Yeah, you're walking into the door and it's like the march, to the electric chair, instead of this great thing that therapy could and should be. Last takeaways for these spouses who are in a relationship with somebody who has suffered this trauma. Any last do's, don'ts, shoulds?
Do know that you are very important to your partner, that people who are struggling with some kind of sexual trauma, who are bringing you in and letting you in, that they're really risking and making themselves incredibly vulnerable. Don't pressure or guilt her, if it's a her, into being sexual when she is not ready to be or doesn't want to be. That may seem obvious, but there are times when this can be a little bumpy and difficult on both parties, and that if she's not interested, it's not a rejection of you, and it's not because you don't matter or because she's not loving or finding you attractive. And to be able to also really look at connecting in other ways that are not going to trigger that kind of response, and then to be able to build toward things that to remember you and your partner can reclaim your sexual life. And that's something that is a healthy part of a relationship, and you don't have to let that determine things forever, that things can get a lot better.
I love it. Dr. Arutt, you not only bring hope and sensibility to an often crazy topic, but you bring very, very clear information, and I really, really appreciate that. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much.